Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Marvel Plus podcast, the show where we talk the Marvel shows on Disney Plus and how they connect to the MCU. My name is Bret, aka Enigma911, and usually you catch this podcast live every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And you join on the chat and the conversation over on twitch.tv/Enigma911. If you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Drops over on YouTube. Just search Enigma911. Drops the very next day at 12 noon Eastern. You can give it a watch, give it a listen over there, and we'd love you for it. Today, we're going to be continuing our Moon Knight discussion, as we're going to be talking about Moon Knight Episode 5, titled Asylum. So we're going to open up with our recap of, obviously, all the shenanigans that have been kind of happening throughout this series, and our big cliffhanger of last episode of Marc and Steven running into our hippo goddess. So we'll have to figure out in this episode what that is all about. So after the recap and after the opening, we are going to open up to a lot of shouting and a woman saying it's our fault. Marc is going to kind of scare himself away. He's shouting back at Arthur, or Harrow, in another meeting. He's having a rough time. So it's a new session with Dr. Harrow. We notice he has a broken nose this time, and we'll see a few other things around the room, including the skull of the hippo that we had seen of the goddess earlier. So he's kind of dealing with, okay, was this another hallucination, or is this something real? And he's still fighting it, essentially. Says, Harrow's not a real doctor. And he tries to retrace his steps, and Arthur will bring up the story of the hippo. So apparently he knows about this. So apparently, I guess, Marc has confessed this in his therapy session to Harrow and gone from there. So Marc starts freaking out again, and security comes in, and we go back to the hippo situation that we're at. So we catch back up right where we left off with Steven and Marc screaming at this hippo, and the hippo as well screaming at them in fear. Marc's going to mention that the meds that they put him on must be pretty good for him seeing all this stuff, and he questions once again if this is all in his head. But turns out it's not in his head. He's not actually in a psych ward, but instead they are dead. And it's her job to kind of bring them into the afterlife. And I guess to ease the situation, this afterlife, or at least this journey to it, kind of is presented to them in something that seems safe, or at least familiar. So apparently the psych ward is their safety, or at least something to keep them grounded and not overwhelmed in this situation. But they're going to the Juhat, I think I'm pronouncing that right, maybe not, Egyptian afterworld. She is transporting them via boat to that land. And as she's explaining all this, we get a quick little reference to Black Panther. We hear about the ancestral plane, and that call out of that afterlife is different and it's very nice. But apparently this one has to do with your judge of character. During this boat ride, there's a scale. If your scales balance out, you will be permitted into this realm of, I think it was reeds. You can pass into the field of reeds. If not, you're thrown off of the ship and kind of consumed by the rest of the not incomplete, but unbalanced souls. So Marc's having a tough time with this whole situation, thinking about it. So we see their scale, and it's not balanced. It's kind of moving constantly back and forth, doesn't know which way it wants to go. And apparently their hearts are incomplete. So they now are tasked with the journey of balancing their scales prior to them reaching their destination. So luckily for them, the Asylum in the boat contains essentially their memories. So it's their job once again to balance out. So they're okay, let's go from there. Steven's all for this, trying to figure out, obviously how they can move forward with this balance. Marc's trying to find an easy way out. He obviously knows something about his past that he does not want to share with Steven. And I don't know if it was a full-on joke, but wants to kill the hippo and just take over the ship. So Steven starts looking through rooms, trying to, progress and help the scales. We'll see him find a room of the Moon Knight Beatdown episode 1. We'll see another from the Sky Rewind in episode 3. But then he's going to stumble on a new memory of Mark's. And it's Mark outside of a red car, kind of just chilling. And he's questioning what this is because he has no recollection of it at all. As he's kind of puzzled with this, they're going to hear a cry for help down the hall. The two are going to travel down there. Turns out to be a cafe filled with dead bodies. Lovely. Fun. And Mark starts recognizing all the people in the room and starts listing off locations. Unfortunately, these are all the people that he has killed in his mercenary work. So, as he's kind of sharing this information with Steven, we'll see the scale reappear. It's starting to slow down, so there is improvement happening to the situation that they're in. The two are going to recognize this, but then they're also going to notice that there's a small boy in the room. And Steven starts to freak out and says, "Wait, did you kill a kid?" And tries to communicate with the child. Mark says don't go near him, and instead Steven is going to pursue the child, into a room, and Mark is going to get left behind. And we get a lot of information now about Mark growing up. So the kid is actually not Mark himself, but it's his brother. And we're going to meet the whole family. We're going to meet his dad. We're going to meet him as a kid, his brother, and his mom. And we're going to see the kids go out to play. And Steven's going to follow. And it starts to rain. The kids mention kind of like exploring and how they're not supposed to do something. Like their parents said not to go somewhere during a storm while it's raining because it may be dangerous. But Mark says it's okay. Kid Mark says it's okay, and they pursue anyway. As they're talking about adventure, they mention Dr. Stephen Grant, which we know from last episode is kind of like a TV show. And Steven has now finally heard this himself for the first time. Steven pursuing the kids into a cave, tries to get them to stop. As he goes into the cave, he's going to be stepping on like a bird skeleton. He picks up his foot to kind of catch his balance and realize what he stepped on, but it's a conchu skull on this bird. Alright, fun. So the kids go in the cave. Steve follows, but notices that water is gushing in. Apparently the cave is getting flooded. So the water's rising fast. Mark's trying to, grown-up Mark, while this is going on, is really trying to catch up to the situation, investigating the ward, going around and around. But the boys are in trouble in the cave, essentially. And Mark's starting to freak out. Grown-up Mark is starting to freak out inside the ward because he knows, as this being his memory, knows what is about to happen. Mark will eventually catch up in the next scene, and it is the brother's funeral. So, Kid Mark and his brother, unfortunately, his brother had passed away, was unable to leave the cave. And the two are, the grown-ups, Stephen and Mark, are just like kind of taking it all in. And the main thing from this funeral is the mom is not happy with Kid Mark and essentially is putting all the blame on him. It's all your fault. You were supposed to keep him safe. And we kind of see Mark's mom's, well, Mark and Steven's mom transition, well, the mom. We'll see the mom's transition down this dark path of guilt, blame, etc. And the unhealthy relationship that she kind of builds with Kid Mark here. And we'll see it progress through some birthdays as she's just not at all supportive of Kid Mark or forgiving him of what's going on. And includes, her drinking and stuff like that. Throughout this whole thing, it's kind of like a chain of events, but Steven is like kind of following the story along, from the funeral to the birthday where she's drinking, to another birthday with his father and him. And Mark is trying to have him stop. It eventually leads to one birthday where kid Mark is going to run up to his room, and grown-up Mark is able to stop Steven before he's able to pursue into that room. So he pulls him outside, and the two have a conversation about the mom. We're going to see another memory down the line of Mark grown up, essentially high school age or post-high school age, leaving and talking with his dad. And he's leaving. He's not happy with the situation. Mom needs help, etc., etc. Mark will then tackle Steven out of this memory, and they are back at the desert. Or they're rather in a new desert, new memory. And now it's the mercenary memories. And it's essentially the memory of how Khonshu and Mark became intertwined. It's the incident where the partner had turned on Mark, getting too selfish, wanting too much for himself, killing Layla's dad along with the rest of the excursion team, and then eventually Mark, or at least attempting to have him dead. And we're going to see Khonshu reach out to him and kind of take advantage of him, which Steven brings up, of, making him his champion. And we'll see him transform into the Moon Knight for the first time. So, now we're going to return to the ship. Apparently there's a big disturbance. We got monkeys running around for some reason. And apparently fear is spreading around in the upper world. And there's a lot of unbalanced souls that are being sent down to this afterlife, to the sands, before their time. So we obviously know that Harrow has been succeeding in what his task is, and he is, judging these people with his cane and his powers like that. So he's sending a shit ton of people down. So their goal is, okay, we need to reach out to Layla and Khonshu and let them know things are wrong. Like, we need assistance. We need help. The Hippo agrees. I don't know if we ever confirm if this is the ally from the gods, like, meeting that we had seen before the Sky Rewind. But she agrees to help. She's going to turn the boat to try and reach out to Layla and Khonshu. And the guys still need to get their scales balanced and quick, because if they don't, whatever they are attempting will not be successful. That message to trying to reach out. So we're going back to the ward, and Steven's really pestering Mark about the bedroom that he got stopped at when kid Mark ran up there. Mark doesn't want to go in there, just wants to talk. And Steven, once again, poking. And Mark freaks out. And once again wakes back up with Dr. Harrow. His nose is now fixed. There's one of the nurses present in the room, just kind of leaning against the wall. And now we start to get some interesting questions from Dr. Harrow of who created who. Did Mark create Steven to hide all the bad things he did? Or did Steven create Mark to punish the world for his mother's actions? And Harrow's going to say, you need to open up to Steven. So now we get the follow-up in the room. Mark has decided to let him in. So we got Kid Mark in the room with both Mark and Steven. Kid Mark is scared, saying it's not his mom. Like, he's trying to calm himself down. He's huddled down, essentially fetal position on the floor. Mom's trying to get into his room, saying open the door, she's banging on it, etc., etc. And we see what this situation has done to Mark. Through his fear, through his stress, this high energy situation, he creates a safety blanket for himself and spawns this personality of Steven. So he becomes a different person, this different personality. He starts organizing around the room, He's brave. He's confident. Like, well, maybe not confident, but like nothing can go wrong. He's modeling it after the hero that he had watched on television. So the mom gets in and says, don't do that again. Don't shut the door. Don't keep me out. And we see her grab a belt. Grown-up Mark says, we need to go. Steven wants to stay, but Mark brings him out, and seemingly kid Mark gets beat. So adult Mark pulls him out of the situation, saying he's not supposed to see that. You got to live a simple, normal life. And Mark starts pouring out his feelings. Mom beat him, hated him. You got to live thinking she loved you and was kind and is still alive. So we got that truth bomb dropped. So that prediction was correct way back when. Mom's not alive. Apparently Mark had learned this years later, as Dad had called after the situation of him leaving. And now Steven's going to have the panic attack. He's panicking about the news of Mom being dead, and now he will wake up with Dr. Harrow. So Steven's lost at the whole situation, because obviously this is his first time in the chair, and he's doubtful of the whole situation. He makes fun of Harrow's appearance, his little mustache, and, oh, you got a doctorate, good for you, in the time. And he's still struggling with the news of his mom's passing. And Harrow says, okay, she's not dead, let's talk to her, let's give her a call. And once Harrow starts doing that action of calling her, getting in contact, Steven starts pleading, don't bother her. Harrow offers the phone. Steven, crying, takes the offered phone, but then kind of comes to the realization himself and is honest with himself that she is dead. And this is going to flip over to one last memory the two are going to kind of share together, and it's the mom's funeral. It's the car memory that we saw earlier. The dad is going to notice Mark out by the red car, and Mark's not in great spirits, and he's drinking. Dad's going to try and call him in, but Mark wants none of it. He walks away crying, trying, to pump himself up. Don't give her the satisfaction, but he breaks down. He breaks down with the event of his mom's passing, just breaks down right in the street. And he's going to change into Steven because of this high emotional journey he's currently taking. So he changes personalities into his safety blanket. And Steven's lost again. That's where we see him kind of try and navigate back to where he was, call his mom, leave the message, and continue on his way. So now current Mark and current Steven talk to each other about the memory. Steven, assures Mark that his brother's actions, or his brother's passing and his mom's actions, are not his fault. He was a kid. And the two seemingly, heal with the sharing. And we get some shaking. The boat has now stopped. They're at the gates of Osiris. So this is make or break. Have the scales balanced. So they're back on the boat. Unfortunately, the scales never balanced. They couldn't stop the inevitable. So now the unbalanced souls are now going to claim them, to join them in the sands. So we start seeing others climb the boat, other figures, and they're now attacking Mark. Mark offers to protect because obviously he has the background, and Steven does not. Mark tries fighting them off, but isn't doing great. Steven has a little pep talk, and he's able to save Mark by turning the ship, and builds up enough courage to fight back and save Mark further. Steven's going to handle the situation, gives Mark a little thumbs up, like, hey, I got you, and Mark is going to get grabbed from the back from another unbalanced soul. In an attempt to save Mark, Steven is going to tackle this attacker and him and this attacker are going to fall into the sands. Marc is going to shout out to him. Steven's going to try and walk and get back onto the ship, but unfortunately gets absorbed and frozen by the sands. Marc shouts, trying to stop the boat. The scales finally balance, and Marc is going to appear in the field of reeds, and that will be the end to this episode. So, wow, we get a lot of information on the history of these two. We fully now know that it is a separate personality that, once again, Marc had created as his safety blanket for himself, modeling it after his childhood hero, the explorer. And we got that healing moment from the two of, like, you know, kind of acceptance from Marc of his situation. Like, that wasn't my fault. Like, he's been carrying this guilt this whole time. He's able to heal from there. And yeah, Steven is, and that personality seems to be now gone. Obviously, with him dying in the sands or passing on, it seems like Marc has come to terms with his problems and his other personality. So now Marc will be going forward. Thank you, Steven. So now, going into the finale, we're in quite the pickle. We've lost Steven, R.I.P., so we do not have that expertise anymore. We, as Marc, have to find a way now out of the afterlife. We need to save Khonshu from his entrapment, his jail time, if you will. We need to get the Moon Knight ability back, and then we need to deal with Harrow. There's a lot we need to figure out in this last episode. Now, speaking of Khonshu, we fully don't know what his intentions are. We keep getting these little blips of, like, it seems like, obviously this is a bad situation for Marc, and Khonshu's kind of taking advantage of him, whether it's Harrow's testimony of his experience, whether it's this scene here where we see Marc passing away, or rather dying, and Khonshu taking advantage of him and, you know, advantage of his situation and making him the Avatar. So I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't know much about Moon Knight's background. So I've never known Khonshu to be like this. I guess parasite is the best word. I've never known that character or that source to be like that, but this show is kind of painting him in that light. There has to be some kind of redeeming quality for Khonshu for us to kind of root for him, unless this is going to turn into a Ghost Rider situation where, once again, limited knowledge of Ghost Rider, but Ghost Rider got his abilities from, oh crap, what's the devil's name? Mephisto. And got the abilities from Mephisto, but then Ghost Rider uses those abilities to fight against Mephisto. I don't know if it's going to be a situation like that where he just happens to take advantage of Khonshu's ability. Obviously, we know Marc is trying to protect Layla from her becoming the next Avatar, so I don't know what kind of ties the two have. Obviously, Harrow had escaped the Avatar, or him being the Avatar for the Khonshu. Can Khonshu just be like, nah, peace out? Doesn't seem like it, because then he would have jumped to Layla already previously before any of this situation. So maybe because Marc allows him in, Khonshu's kind of trapped there. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see if that relationship is explained any further in the finale to make it more of a symbiotic relationship instead of a negative relationship. But yeah, Mrs. G's right in chat. It's a lot to do in one episode. I'm curious to see if it will stay the hour mark. I think most of these have been around 50-55 minutes. So we'll have to see if it continues from there. He is technically officially dead in this field of reeds. So I don't know how they plan to get the message to Layla to try and get help. it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I did really enjoy this episode. I liked that we obviously see a lot of Mark's backstory here, and now we fully know the origins of Steven and why he was made, why he was created, why he's present. It's unfortunate that, like, that's how he was made, for sure. Now it makes us connect with Mark, I think, a little bit more, which is important, because he was very shrouded in mystery in the rest of these episodes. It was kind of like, oh, you're just in his head taking his body, but now obviously we know he did that out of fear, and a stressful situation in his childhood. So now we have Mark going forward. Hopefully the healing can make Mark more relatable going forward, because obviously there were aspects of Steven that we really did enjoy. He was goofy. He was, obviously intelligent with what he did know. Not saying Mark will fully encapsulate those personality traits, but maybe there's a way to kind of keep him along for the journey in a way, but we'll have to see. But yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying Moon Knight. We're heading into the finale very shortly, so hope you guys are enjoying. Hope you guys have been watching the show. If you have any thoughts about it, let me know down in the comment section down below. I'd be happy to read them. Let me know what the pros are, the cons are, what you think. And yeah, we'll be talking about that finale very, very soon. This has been another episode of the Marvel Plus Podcast. Appreciate you guys hanging out. My name is Bret, aka Enigma911. And if you guys ever want to catch this podcast live, you go over to twitch.tv/Enigma911 every Sunday, usually, when we record at 7 p.m. Eastern. You join the chat if you're a subscriber over there for all the fun theory talk. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-okay. Just go over to YouTube and search Enigma911. It drops the very next day at 12 p.m. Eastern. You can check it out over there. Give it a watch, give it a listen, and we'd appreciate you for it. Moon Knight finale coming up, and then we got, I believe, Miss Marvel is next. A little bit more grounded in the reality, potentially, but we'll keep the ball rolling here, and don't worry, we'll get the craziness in there too with Doctor Strange around the corner. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for giving this a chance, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.